there's so many technical difficulties of glitching and not being able to add co-hosts, so we had to move over to Discord.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I've had the app, but like I said, I've just never really used Discord all that much. So I'm kind of new to the settings here or interface.
Yeah, I think
we're glad to have you.
I was just telling the rest of the community here, like, obviously people want to get a little bit of an update on 8.22. I've obviously referenced going to GitHub. There's been a lot of discussion there. Potentially Rosetta, which has been a discussion point, and then even wallets. So I don't know if you want to chime in maybe a little bit on the 8.22 side since you seem to be involved in it, or any other things DigiByte related that you want to discuss. That might be a good starting point. If unless anybody else wants to chime in before that.
Yeah, I can definitely jump in and kind of give my perspective. First and foremost, there's definitely a lot happening. It's amazing to see some new contributors that have been stepping up and some older contributors. We've been identifying some issues that we actually missed, and we've got some fixes for. So we're close, I believe, to an 8.22 release, although there's still some things that we need to troubleshoot and finalize. But I think the very important thing to appreciate about version 8.22 is the development process that was implemented over the last couple years that is allowed to a process that will help make sure DigiByte, is decentralized and has numerous eyes looking at any potential future changes. And that process does tend to slow things down a little bit, but at the same time, that's what decentralization is, right? Is when you have not just one person that can make changes to the code. You have to have at least basically four sets of eyeballs on it in order for any changes to be made. So there's definitely work being done there. There was a recent issue that was discovered that was causing mining issues, I think, on testnet as well as some other issues, and that had to do with the Coinbase maturity. So when a new coin is generated or mined, you can't spend it right away, and there were two different settings for that in the history of DigiByte. And we hadn't properly configured that with our last updates, and this is why we test. And so that was, I believe, leading to some issues on testnet. But we've identified the issue, and we're in the process of fixing it. There's also a few other things we have to test, but I think for the most part, 8.22 is workable. We just need to, really thoroughly test it to make sure there's no future issues. And this, by far, will be the most tested release we've ever released in the last 10 years. Um, that there's a lot of things that we need to work on. Um, and I really don't want to go into the details right now. I'm actually, like I said in my update video, I want to talk about some of the potential use cases and things we can do. But today, I think we should just kind of focus on the fact that it's been a decade. I'd love to get some other people's inputs or answer some questions, or I don't know. I'm just here as a community member.
Thank you for that. I think there's been a lot of good development news coming out, just in terms of pull requests being fulfilled or merged. A lot of work by the DGB CIT, which we could talk about. And yeah, but that's just one of the things the community is interested in. But yeah, 10 years. So congrats everyone on DigiByte Day. It's been a full decade. That's pretty wild to think, and just curious what else everyone else thinks.
Just to jump in real quick, if you may not know, the blockchain was launched at exactly 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So we actually have about 39 minutes before we're officially 10 years old. Just a fun
Cool.
fact.
Cool. Thanks. I was wondering, with the next version, is that spending problem solved? So, like, till infinity 1 DigiByte, or has that already been solved? Because I couldn't really get a clear answer from the Twitter community.
Say that one more time. You were breaking up on my end.
All right. So, for as far as I know, the last thing that I heard were one of the big FUD items was that there was no actual cap on DigiByte, but that there would be forever 1 DigiByte released with a block. Has that already been solved, or is that being solved in 8.22?
Yes, that the code to fix that to make sure it absolutely 110% goes to zero is already in 8.22. That was done, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And 10 years ago, what was your age, Jared?
I was 26 years old.
All right,
Now,
cool, man. Wow. A lot must have happened in the meantime.
yeah, no, there's been absolute. It seems like yesterday in some ways, but then it's seems like forever ago, like a whole different life and a whole different world back then. And in a lot of ways it was, and in some ways it wasn't. But yeah, it's time flies.
Yeah, I can imagine. And just before you joined, we were listening to your awesome video you shared on Twitter, and you were there talking about some of the awesome development ideas or things that you had. I would love to hear some more things about that, and I would also love to hear something from Leroy about DigiByte Commerce, as that is one of the things that I think for me is the most fungible to actually work with to get DigiByte to be used.
Working on it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that too. Yeah, go ahead, Leroy.
Yeah, I've actually been playing around with the idea for I think almost 7 years at this point. I do come from an e-commerce background, so I've always been making web shops and web stores and the like. I've been into crypto for over 10 years at this point, and it's basically a matter of putting one and one together. I've always been. It always surprised me that there never was anything like what I'm building right now. Uh, I've seen a lot of other efforts over the years. I think there was a dgbmarket.com, which basically intended to do the same what I'm doing now, but basically you just order products and someone then sends you a link in person to transfer DigiByte to a wallet manually. I want to streamline that process a little bit more so things get more automated. Basically, like a real web shop in a sense.
Super cool, man.
And
I'm
really,
definitely looking forward to seeing the result there. I would like to add a little bit on that as well, as I have had my first DigiByte transaction. I think it was in 2021, where I used CoinKit as the means of transacting. So basically, I sent someone, I think it was a few thousand DigiByte through CoinKit, and then they send it to me like via Twitter. So that basically felt for me like a first small step towards a genuine streamlined DigiByte commerce website or something. So I was already amazed, and with the possibilities of actually using it like on a website on a platform, it really gets my head going.
Yeah, it's very cool. You know, a lot of people may not know, but by 2015 into 2016, there was an entire street in the Netherlands, in the town of Zoetermeer, where all the merchants actually accepted DigiByte in person, and we had a wallet. I went there. But unfortunately, a lot of those stores, have closed down since then. And you were mentioning DigiByte Marketplace. Back in, I think it was like 2015, 2016, we tried get that going. But I think those things were a little too early. But now I think is a lot better timing for marketplaces. So it's very cool to see that.
And I've actually been getting a lot of great feedback. There's actually about 10 people actively testing it in the meantime, completely voluntarily, which have been giving me great feedback in between. So there's apparently a lot of demand for it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot more, better timing now. I think, back in 2015 and 16, we were all trying to figure out if, crypto was even going to be a thing, let alone your average person or everyday people using it. But I think that debate's pretty well been settled that crypto is going to be a part of our future. There's no question about it. And yeah, I think the timing is way better now. And especially once this Bitcoin, if this Bitcoin ETF approval, finally comes through.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, yeah, Leroy, the website's looking really great, and I think it really embodies the whole peer to peer ethos of DigiByte. So I can't wait for more development on that, and we'll love to fill the community in. Since we have Ollie over here, I just noticed. Ollie, would you want to talk a little bit about the DigiByte critical infrastructure team? I don't know if you're available, but if you can, it would be great to give the community a little update.
Yeah.
Sorry to just interrupt, Ollie. I just wanted to give heads up to everyone. I talked to Frederick. He's not going to be able to make it. He's on business travel, but he definitely wishes everyone congratulations. But sorry, go for it, Ollie.
Yeah, so all of that kind of started. The truth was, we didn't really kind of, it was never really like officially announced as a thing. It just kind of happened organically, but it all started back in about sort of December the year before last, where there was the guy Jonathan Chapello was trying to do integration for the Decred DEX. And we basically discovered that there weren't any testnet nodes. And suddenly there was a sort of mad panic. They were like, well, maybe there are no testnet nodes, because he wanted one to kind of develop with. And it became clear that, while in an ideal world when you have a very mature blockchain, everything should just work, and all of these sort of extra systems that we rely on to build on DigiByte, ideally there probably should be people running testnet nodes and mining, and there should be enough developers working on it. But the reality is that, when even at 10 years old, DigiByte is still young, and it sort of became clear that we actually kind of needed to loosely at least coordinate the community to try and get to support these systems so that they just work. At some point you hope that this team isn't required, because there're just enough people doing it anyway. But for now, it was just about trying to get enough people to ensure that we have a working testnet, and we have seed servers to actually make sure that when a new node opens, there are people running these things so that new nodes can join the network. And all of these kind of things, initially what we've been focused on was about the seed servers. That was the sort of thing that we worked on last year, with a bunch of volunteers all coming together. I'm just one of these volunteers, and there are a lot of us. So thank you everyone who's doing that. We're basically now all running seed servers to support the network, and DigiByte never really had it sort of so that it was this. I don't want to use the word organized, because it's still volunteer based, but it's kind of like the term I like to use is coordinated decentralization, as in everyone is working together for the greater good. That's the thinking behind it. And so far it seems to be working well. And the great thing about it is that in our work in trying to get the testnet working, we've then, because everyone's all working together, we're then surfacing a lot of problems that are being discovered in 8.22. So that's all, great progress and moving everything forward. So that's good. Yeah.
Thank you, Ollie. That's an awesome update. I love that coordinated decentralization. I think that really embodies what the DGB CIT is all about. And I think it shows just the value of putting in effort over a long time, making those incremental gains. And I love seeing those PR reports, which are PR requests that are kind of small, but you can see how the cumulative effect is making DigiByte stronger. So thank you for the update.
Sure.
Hey, I have a question for Jared.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been asked this before in the past, but I've always been curious to know, like, why DigiByte as far as the name? Like, did you juggle with other names, or did you just get it right in the first go around?
I actually spent, I knew that I wanted to launch a blockchain and add some of the tweaks that I thought could improve Bitcoin. And I did spend a few days trying to discover a name, but I didn't want to put like a coin in the name, because I felt like there was more to a blockchain than just simply currency. And so it's digital, a byte of data. You can encode, data And so when I put the two together, it instantly clicked, and I'm like, that's it, and it was settled. So I think I used like thesaurus.com, and I had a list of different programming terms and words, and I just kind of started fitting things together. And yeah, when I put the two together, I'm like, that's it. It works.
Nice, nice.
Awesome.
And just to
Hey,
go back,
Oliver, can you invite Frank in? Because he's trying to come in. He put a tweet out that he can't. The link is expired
that's
and he
me.
can't get in. Oh, you're in. Okay, never mind.
I'm already in. That's me.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
no worries.
Thank you
Thanks.
for sharing. Thank you for sharing, though.
yeah, I just wanted to add, I like that term, coordinated decentralization. That fits, and it's really been awesome to see how so many people have stepped up to help with the seeders and testnet. You know, we've never had a functioning long-term testnet in 10 years, and I think that's important to growth long-term for a test platform. But just kind of to highlight on some of the issues from a perspective of longevity, it's absolutely amazing what we were able to put together and achieve in terms of infrastructure for the first 5, 6, 7 years with such little, basically, so little resources. But what tended to happen is you would have people come in, they were passionate, they wanted to help out. We build out infrastructure, and then, for whatever one reason or another, life happens. People have to go about their daily lives and their jobs, and they would kind of leave. And so we kind of started getting this abandoned infrastructure. And over the years, that's happened with wallets, it's happened with block explorers, it happened with seed nodes. But the efforts here over the last 2 years have been pretty amazing because it's been kind of focused around, hey, how can we build infrastructure that's long term, so that people can come and go. And I think that's important to understand and recognize that from a maturity standpoint, from a development process, DigiByte's in a much better position than it's ever been before over the last 10 years. And I think that's what's for sure going to let us, we're going to be hopefully all of us are here in 10 years. But I believe the blockchain will be for sure. And I want to thank everybody that's been a part of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Jared. I think there was a lot of, the community kind of fell apart a little bit after the last so-called bull run. And I think it's been really heartening to see everyone kind of pull back together. And that gives me the confidence too to say that, wow, like DigiByte really is here to stay. Like we're still all contributing on our own terms, and the protocol, the blockchain, the community is still growing, and that's beautiful to see.
Yeah, just to add on top of that, we've been through what, 4 or 5 bear markets now, and by far this bear market has been the best of all of them in terms of people hanging around and contributing. There was a moment in, I think it was January of 2016. I think it was January of 2016. DigiByte was just a little over 2 years old. I think our market cap was under $100,000. There had been a bunch of people that initially were involved with the launch and release in 2014. And basically, I think it was down to a couple dozen of us and a handful, because that bear market was pretty brutal. I think that was the worst winter, crypto winter, just in memory. I mean, there was a lot of things personally I was going through, but that was the one time I didn't think DigiByte was going to make it any much longer. But there was a handful of people that kept contributing and pulled it through. And then the next one and the next one. So I mean, these cycles, they happen, but I think you just hit the key point. People are here, they can contribute on their own terms. We don't always disagree. We don't have to disagree. But that's the beauty of decentralization, and I think that's why people are attracted to DigiByte, and that's why I'm a firm believer that we will, the blockchain will be here, 10 years from now. So once again, I can't thank everybody here in the community enough. Y'all are awesome.
To add on to that, I would like to know, now that we've had thanked everyone and that we've had such an amazing first 10 years with awesome infrastructure built, I would love to know how we, as a community, it's not per se a question for anyone, more than for everyone. Like, how as a community can we interact with each other on like the fully decentralized level? Like I told you, like with DigiByte Commerce, for example, that isn't live yet, but like sending each other things that we actually can use in our daily life through maybe through the mail while transacting through wallets through one another. Because I think that's definitely is in my opinion the future where I would like to see us as a community grow to, as basically being maybe not even that much connected through location, but more through our actions and deeds in currency and stuff, you know, so that maybe you have something that I need and I have something that you need, and we can transact that way in DigiBytes instead of sending each other dollars or euros or something. Does anyone have any idea besides DigiByte Commerce, which is probably just going to be like a shop for merchants, which is already an awesome idea, but like what would be one of the key things to transact for DigiBytes?
As far as I'm concerned, that's going to be utility. That's also what I've been putting the emphasis on when it comes to DigiByte Commerce. I mean, there's a great foundation lying there. There's a great means of payment, a quick and a cheap means of payment from one person to the other. But we're not doing much with it at the moment. Exactly. And there's been so many great ideas lately, mainly in the Telegram chat, on Twitter. There's been mentions of DigiByte transaction powered polls, a consensus mechanism, stuff like that. Renzo released that Canvas thing a couple of months ago, which a couple of people used. And I think once we have more of these little tangible features lying around, people automatically start using it more.
And this is a great point, because I've been talking to Frederick a lot about this, and you know, this seems to be the crux of how we gain the adoption. You know, obviously DigiByte Commerce is great. More platforms like that, and even why I even ask about, has anyone done any daily DigiByte transactions? I mean, yeah, sometimes it gets annoying or irritating, but ultimately that is kind of the selling point. We have all the features of what makes us conducive for that, but until we really use it, then we're not really different than any other, you know, blockchain or cryptocurrency out there. I mean, obviously we have a very unfair advantage in a lot of areas, but if we're not using it, then it doesn't really matter. So I think that's been one of the themes that Frederick and I have been talking about, is how do we get more of the community or more people to, we're not saying all of your daily life can be that way, because obviously these people may not understand it or they're hesitant to open up a wallet, but some level of using that and transacting it would be a good narrative for people to see that. And I think that's the thing is, you know, we talk about on a high level, like, why isn't an exchange listing us, or, you know, all these other ancillary things that people are looking for. It all boils down to, when we are using this more and more, people will see that, hey, this is an active currency that's being, or blockchain that's being used, has all the features, and they want to be part of that, right? So it's not so much that we have to keep, I don't want to use the word begging, but, you know, keep on figuring out why they're not doing it. We just have to set the groundwork by ourselves, and you know, let people come to us, versus, because we've been doing too much chasing over the decade, and quite frankly, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, I agree, and I wanted to add on to that. Like, along with this whole transactions narrative and actually using it, we have these applications like DigiID and DigiAssets, which should be implemented and used much more than they are. The issue is with, well, I don't want to say with development, but with the rollout and with our general ecosystem. And then the nature of DigiID and DigiAssets, where if you want to securitize something or provide security, there's a lot of organizational friction. There's a lot of just developmental issues for supporting things, and there's also the dimension of legal frameworks and standards that DigiID and DigiAssets may not be adapted for or optimized for. So these are things that the community is working on, and like DigiAssets is being developed, but we need to kind of, you know, we need to go for more of that coordinated decentralization route, maybe, so to speak, and really like have teams that are focused on bringing this to the masses and making it more accessible. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on what was said, over the years, when I first, especially, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, when you try to introduce somebody to DigiByte, you start talking about cryptography and security and all this stuff, and it was just kind of, over somebody's head. But whenever I would have somebody that had already used Bitcoin, if I got them to simply send a transaction with DigiByte, they were hooked. And I think at its most basic utility, the utility has been there since day one. It's a very fast, efficient, and secure way of sending a payment anywhere in the world in a matter of seconds. And streamlining that, making that as easy to use as possible, I think that's absolutely the number one thing. But as Bitcoin grows, especially if these ETF approvals come through, which it still doesn't look like they're going to approve it today. Maybe not. I don't know. But the network congestion on Bitcoin is only going to grow. I mean, the fees are already outrageous. But if you imagine Bitcoin at $100,000, you're going to have $500 transaction fees on Bitcoin. And as that happens, I think you're going to see more people that are drawn to DigiByte simply for the efficiency and the ease of use that it offers. And I think that's absolutely important, to highlight. But to me, and this is just kind of vision future talking, to really get DigiByte to the next level, in the back of my mind, it's always been, how can we make the core wallet the hub of activity? And what I mean by that is, what if we were able to be having this group discussion from within the core wallet instead of within the Discord app? The community is kind of fragmented across all these different apps. You have GitHub, you have Twitter and X and Telegram and Reddit. And what if you could use the wallet as your personal blockchain hub or personal portal, where not only could you send monetary transactions, but you could communicate, you could share files, you could secure files, you could secure your own data, you could, launch assets. Like, I've always felt that, like Elon Musk is working towards this vision that he wants X to be the one-stop shop for everything, for payments, for communications, for videos. I've often thought, in an ideal world with unlimited funding, that's what I would like work to build, is to create a core wallet that not only incentivizes people to be the node, or to be a node and run a node on the blockchain, but it has all this utility. And like was mentioned earlier, I think at the end of the day, utility is what's going to win out. But we have the first most important utility use case, and that is sending fast, efficient, and cheap transactions.
I think it's a very awesome point that you make there, especially in regards to having a one-stop shop. And I've been using one blockchain, which I'm not trying to shill here, but I think Multiverse X has a very nice application with their X portal, which has a lot of these things that you are mentioning. You can send messages there, you can send transactions peer-to-peer, and you can also browse the different DeFi opportunities there. I think if we could get something of a basic thing like that, maybe not yet with the video coding or something, but just like a mobile app, a mobile hub that gets you an oversight of everything you have and everything you can do with it. That could definitely be a huge improvement. However, I'm unfortunately not a very big contributor to that, besides maybe a marketing standpoint or a financial standpoint, as I have no idea what the workload on building something like that would be.
Yeah. So to that point, not only is that something that's necessary, but we also have been discussing, like on the DigiByte awareness team, about updating digibyte.org itself, uh, and how we share information in general. Oliver, if you want, can you talk about digibyte.org, your opinion on that, and also the new DGB wiki, and these new this new era for the DigiByte awareness team, what you think we're capable of and what needs to be done?
Yeah, sure. In regards to the digibyte.org website, I think it's when the website came, when this new fresh look came, that was it was really good. Like, everyone was super happy with that, and it's been doing us a good service for some time now, since But I think that, you know, after using the website for such a long time, I've kind of noticed some things, and it's not really a very user friendly website. There's a very, you know, there's a lot of content. You need to scroll the page like really far down, and there's like animations on all the elements that come, that kind of loads in depending on where you are on the scroll, and it just, there's there's so many, you know, accessibility reasons for why that is bad, and that's only on the front end itself. And when you actually look at the code, or the you know, the markup and the styling of the website itself, like it's thousands of lines of code. We have, the website is available in, I think, 24 or 25 languages, which is great, right? The community did that. They contributed to, you know, translations for the website, and that was also a really great thing that happened in the DigiByte community. But it's making it really hard for people to contribute to said website these days, because there's 26 files with thousands of lines of markup and styling inside of them. And if you change one thing, you're expected to change the rest of them as well. And that means making the translations for all of the other 24 languages, which is, you know, not reasonable to expect. Um, so, so we've been kind of discussing whether maybe we want to kind of change that approach and make it more traditional with separate pages that you kind of navigate to, and that's also kind of a great way to get rid of some of the things that needs to be removed, and some of the things that needs to be updated. For example, we've kind of reached this age in modern technology where screen resolutions come in a really compact size, so you can get a really big resolution on a really small device. And that is kind of now messing with the old way that we used to do responsive design in CSS. And so that, those are things that we, I mean, it's kind of a deep overhaul that is required to kind of approach those things. So I think it would be good to kind of just get rid of them all in one big swoop, and actually redesign the website, which is going to be a great undertaking for whoever is involved. And I think I don't really want to go on an hour long rant, although I could. But I think that's going to be it for my response in terms of the digibyte.org for now. The DigiByte wiki, however, this is something that I think is very exciting. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of it, but I sincerely hope that you all are, and that you kind of taken a look at it. But we have now under wiki.digibyte.org a new wiki platform, which is also kind of a whole remake thing. We're using a completely different uh, platform to serve the content, which is you know, more mobile responsive. It gives a much greater look, more modern look, a lot easier to use. You can, you know, you have different plugins and extensions, and different authentication methods. You can log in with, you know, typical things like different social media accounts, GitHub, stuff like that. And it's it's very easy to contribute to it, because it uses the markdown markup syntax, I guess you would call it, which is a really easy to use kind of formatting syntax, so that you can kind of create these big um, pages long documents and articles with it. And I think that's super cool. And the doors are open for the community to pitch in. I know that Ollie, you've already contributed some to the DigiByte Wiki since we opened the doors. That's awesome. I'm hoping that the community is gonna kind of pitch in and help out and make this a good platform, a knowledge base of DigiByte in general, with good general guides for how to actually do all these amazing things that a lot of people know that you can do with DigiByte if you're kind of intuitive about it. And yeah, that's it for the wiki. DigiBat. Oh, Archie, what are we going to do with DigiBat? And Michael, I see you're here as well, and Jose, you're here.
Shane, yeah, it's a good question, right? It's really open ended.
It really is. I'm not sure. I mean, we're kind of a few members and DigiByte awareness team, and we've been discussing, how to move forward. The momentum has kind of been lost on our end and in the community in general, on and off. So we're trying to, I guess, find a way to kind of rekindle the spirit that is the DigiByte awareness team. We're all still, enthusiastic about the future of DigiByte, but everyone is living their own daily life. We need to make things work. We're all in different time zones, most of us. So yeah, I don't know. Archie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a context for the DigiByte awareness team and then DigiByte community in general. One thing, the most obvious thing, is that it's really hard to get away from the price. Like, if we could just decouple from the price and just have people that are contributed because they just like doing it, which I think to an extent we already have, but we just have to expand upon. Like, that would make everything so much easier. I was looking at some of the Reddit stats, like, for posts I made from 2 years ago or so during the bull market, and we were doing like page views that we currently do in like a month, and that's like with a lot of effort and putting in time with posts. We were doing that many page views in like a single day, and we were like getting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of clicks and shares. So
Yeah.
I think we missed an opportunity with that, just because we weren't focused on what to do when we had the eyes and we had people interested. So I just want to prevent that. My biggest thing is just to make it to a point where we can grow the community with exposure that we get from price or news or whatever it could be. That's my specific thought. Thank you.
I'd like to add on top of that and kind of just frame a little perspective, going back over the last 10 years. When DigiByte was first launched, obviously it was just me. Like, I didn't have anybody else working on it with me. So when we first launched it, I set up the Twitter account. I set up, I think there was some community members that actually did Reddit, but I started being active on Reddit. Then there was Bitcoin Talk. The Bitcoin Talk thread was kind of the main place for a while, but then there was a website, all these different channels that people exist in, right? And it was, things were pretty small in 14, 15, and like I said, really small in 16. But when 2017 hit, it just blew up there in the fall. And I've always regretted that we didn't have more in place leading into that, because I do feel like we missed a lot of opportunities. But that wasn't for lack of wanting or trying, it was just overload. And since then I have actively tried to get rid of and turn things over to the community, to the point where I literally just today, the only thing I have access to now is just the GitHub for the code. That's it. That's the only thing that I have any sort of admin access to. And I like that, because I'll never forget in January of 2018, waking up and my phone had 110,000 notifications and I couldn't unlock it because it kept freezing. And that was from Twitter, from email, from Telegram, from all these different platforms. And it was just absolutely overload with all these people looking for information and context. And we just didn't have it. We just didn't have the infrastructure. But for one person or a handful of people to do it all was just frankly impossible. I mean, there were groups that would spend 20 million bucks doing basically what we had at that point. And that's why I say today, I think we're in a much better position, but people naturally tend to come and go. Here, I think we're on our 6th. I think this would be the 7th website if it's redesigned. I think this is the 3rd wiki. the third marketplace. I mean, there's these things kind of tend to go in cycles. And I think if we can start thinking like, how can we approach a piece of support infrastructure that can easily be handed over as people come and go, because people will come and go, life happens. And I think, and that's definitely what we're trying to do here with the GitHub. But I think taking that approach, and that already kind of is the case with the markdown language and stuff for a wiki, for a website, for different apps. I mean, one of the issues that we need to address now is like the iOS apps, right? And these other mobile apps, and then some of these other wallets. We get people that came in, they helped, they did magnificent work, and then, you know, like I said, life happens, and then you end up with this infrastructure that needs maintained and updated. And I don't think people realize how much infrastructure has been supported on the back end over the years. Everything from wallets. I mean, we had at one point, I think we had 6 or 7 wallets we were actively maintaining across different operating systems, and it was a lot. And going back to the issues with language translations, we ran into that early on with the first Android app. We had all these people that supported, and then all of a sudden, we were getting these people in different languages that said these crazy things. Same thing with the core wallet. We had issues with that, with translations. But it's this repeating pattern of, people come in, they're engaged, they're active, but whatever process is implemented, if people go into it thinking, okay, how can I turn this over to somebody else in 6 months, so I'm not responsible for it forever, I think is a good approach. And that's just my two digis worth of, I guess, perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I kind of want to touch on that. The whole being able to kind of hand it over. For the wiki, what we're doing is actually we're using GitHub for that. So there's a repository that you would make a pull request to it, and once that is merged with the master branch, then that is synced with the server running the DigiByte wiki. So essentially, even if the server were to go down, all the data will still be in the repository on the GitHub, and you can easily just kind of spin that back up. So I think that's that's very neat. Kind of having a versioning system to rely on as well, so you can be able to look back and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I would encourage everybody, and this goes for the core protocol too, to always have a local copy of the core protocol and this other infrastructure, because GitHub is a centralized point of failure. And obviously we haven't had any major outages yet, but when DigiByte first launched, we didn't even distribute the source code on GitHub. It was actually SourceForge, believe it or not. That's how you know you're old.
That's crazy. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, and the first versions.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the first versions of the .exe and the OSX DMG were actually distributed on Mega Upload, Kim.com's platform.
Another classic, now Mega, right? So
yeah.
All right, so I really appreciate what you said about these like iterations, these generations. I think that's definitely true, and it's not just true for the back end stuff. It's true for the marketing as well. We have a lot of people that come and go and who coordinate with the team. So let's see.
The other thing I wanted to touch and add on, we talk about the use cases and utility and possibility. If we would not be in the legal environment we are in the United States, I think DigiByte would have been a lot further ahead by now. And what I mean by that, in 2015, we actually acquired and modified an existing exchange. And when I say me, I mean me and my former partner. I think we bought the code base for like 10 grand during the bear market, but we spent a year and it was called Digitrade X, and we were going to launch it in Hong Kong, and it was basically going to be a fully functional, competitor to Coinbase. But I went around the country meeting with people. I met with the guy who underwrote the surety bonds for money transmitter license for PayPal. I met with there was only two people at the time that had any of these money transmitter licenses for crypto, Coinbase, and then there was a lady down in Georgia. And basically, by the time I got done talking to all these lawyers and all these people, it was going to cost around $20 million to even get the platform, which I didn't have. I mean, I didn't even have $1 million. So it never got launched. And then again, there was a lot of work done on this platform we were going to launch called DigiPad. It would be your launch pad for digital assets in 2017, 2018. And once again, started meeting with a bunch of lawyers, some regulators, and realized that nobody had a clear answer. It was just chaos. And so we're like, you know what? I don't want the personal liability. I don't want to paint a target on my back. I've already got enough issues. We're just not going to do it. And so there's been a lot of ideas and concepts and even platforms that were fairly well developed that just basically nipped because of the regulatory environment in the United States. And no matter where in the world I went, I was a U.S. citizen. So I think that's changing, but it's a lot of risk for an individual or a group. And even some of the ideas I've had, for sharing, like I mentioned earlier, turning the wallet into a hub of activity. Well, if you really give somebody like the idea that I had for Libertas with the decentralized social media when all the censorship was rolling around, what eventually stopped me is I thought through, okay, what if somebody gets on this platform and they start sharing bad stuff, snuff films, child porn, that kind of stuff. If you really have a decentralized platform that allows that kind of stuff, you're going to end up painting a massive target on your back. So I think when you talk about self-censorship, that's definitely played a role in where DigiByte is today, because I like to say decentralization is a spectrum, and you can have total, complete anarchic decentralization, and then you can have the wolf in sheep's clothing, centralized, decentralized, platforms where it's not decentralized at all, like a lot of the platforms are today. But somewhere in there's a happy medium. I don't know exactly where it is, but I believe as a community, it seems like that's the outcome and the desired goal. And how we work towards that, I think, is going to take a lot of different shapes and forms, but we're going to keep working towards it.
Well said. One of the people working on it is here in the Discord. They haven't really said much, but Renzo, do you want to talk about your experiences with DigiByte and your developments? But not sure if you're here right now. Give me a second.
Hi, yeah, I'm listening. Well, I joined DigiByte in beginning of 2021, right during that bull run. I in fact discovered DigiByte by accident, and since the beginning, I think I saw its difference and its value over its competitors. Um, I think in February is when I made my first transaction a couple of months after discovering it for the first time. And well, it's been a while now, but after I just couldn't stop. I just keep making uh, stuff on it, and well, that's Digifalls, that's the campus thing, and now Digibake Desktop. So, well, yeah, my experience, it's pretty easy to work on, and pretty easy to study if you're into UTXO cryptos, as it's really similar to Bitcoin. All the information out there just for development options, not directly with uh, core software, but also with its functionalities. It's the same, so yeah, it helps a lot. So that's, I think, my sum up or my summary of my personal experience.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I've been going through your apps and really enjoying like Leroy, I believe, mentioned already, there's the DGB Canvas, which is a take on the Reddit Place. and I thought it was just a great app. It showed just how functional DigiByte is in terms of a DApp platform. You had the I was using the Windows version, and basically it just shows like you could functionally use DigiByte as maybe not a backend. I'm out of my scope here, but if you wanted to update the DigiByte canvas, it happened all within a minute. And I'm talking about you could fund your wallet, select what you wanted to do the whole payout, and it would be complete. And if you guys haven't tried that, I'd recommend DGB Canvas. And Renzo, do you want to shout out like any of your other initiatives, like the wallet or anything for that sake?
Yes, for the ones that don't know, I'm currently working on a light wallet for DigiByte, for desktop light wallet for DigiByte. It is started off by the main reason that, as other coins such as Monero or Dogecoin, it does not exist an easy way to hold DigiByte on desktop computers with a personalized wallet or a branded wallet, like well, like for example, as I said, Monero and stuff. Um, and I decided that it was time not just to create another wallet, but to create a wallet that it was really going to exploit the full potentiality or the full potential or the full digital potential. Not just making use of the traditional payment systems, but also to include DG assets, DJD, and a feature that I'm really looking forward to have. It's the ability to have multi-signature wallets. That is a function that is, or that is a feature, sorry, that it's already implemented on the UI as multi-signature or well, pay-to-script hash addresses, but it's not available to general public. I was able to generate some multi-signature addresses by code, but the scripts were so long and it was too complicated to do that it needed some extra stuff to make it like available to the general public. But after that initial shout out to that problematic, I decided to, instead of reaching to that exact problem, it was time to, well, to plan the full picture. And that's when I started planning this project, which is a community funded DigiBit wallet for desktop operating systems. Right now, well, you can look, anyone of you can look for the initiative. The website is digibitdesktop.org. It's, well, the project is divided into four phases. Right now, I'm actively developing the phase one, and it's already funded up to phase two, which includes also the GID functionalities. The assets is planned to be done on phase three, and right now I'm well, I'm finishing phase one. I'm still working on some features. The hardest part was the syncing part. I think I spent like 3 weeks working on that. It was pretty tricky, but I finally make it through, I think. And you can see all the commits or all the advance and progress of the development on the GitHub. It's available on my GitHub page. It's github.com/RenzoDD, as such as my Discord handle, DigiByte-desktop. That's the repository, and it's also listed on the website that I published. I think the last commit was today, a few hours ago, or a few hours ago. Just solving some syncing issues that I was having. That's that's the trickiest part up to now. I actually didn't realize that while planning, but it's been fun and it's been a learning experience, and it gave you a totally different look at how Deeper works on the inside. Once you literally have to work with the abstract or the abstraction of the objects that are represented on the blockchain, and it's pretty fun. Um, so yeah, that's the main thing that I've been working on right now. And well, you can also visit my other projects such as DigiFaucet, which is an easy way to claim some DigiByte. The DigiAsset Explorer, which is a simple way to visualize DigiAssets on the blockchain, who owns them, who creates them, and the information of each DigiAsset. And business on my own that I started at February or March last year, I think it was. That's DigiByte domain. So, way to have a nickname inside DigiByte blockchain and to be able to send DigiByte through a domain name. Some services implemented, such as the X and Security Wallet. And well, anyone is free to claim some domains. Um, they're like $20 one-time payment to claim them, and then they're yours forever. You just need to be sure that to store them on a DigiAssets compatible wallet. And well, I think that's been all of my trajectory. Oh, and if you're a developer, I do have a cool Node.js library forked from the Bitbase Bitcore library, which is called DigiByte.js, and it implements all DigiByte features, which helps you to code with DigiByte pretty easily. That's the core of the DigiByte desktop wallet. So if you're a developer, you can like generate addresses in like 3 lines of code. You can sign DGID tokens with just 6 lines of code, and you can create DGI assets with like 15 lines of code. It does also include a way to look for blockchain data using public blockbook nodes. So it's like an integrated um, environment to code with DigiByte. I think I'm the only one using it right now, but I hope it might be a tool for people to get in touch with DigiByte. I remember last year in the same meeting for the 9-year anniversary, I mentioned the lack of tools to develop with DigiByte and that I was working on DigiByte JS. I think now it's in a pretty stable version, and I proudly can say that I hope it's going to help more people to actually use DigiByte to do or to work or implement it easy way on your or in their projects. So I think that's me.
I was actually planning to use it when I started DigiByte Commerce. I think I initially approached you.
Oh,
I think it was halfway
yeah, I
last
do
year,
remember.
and I ended up not using it, but it actually was did inspire me to start working on DigiByte Commerce. Because it's another topic I want to approach to add to the wiki and the website. I think what held me back to develop for DigiByte all those years, being a developer, is the lack of proper documentation and the approachability of DigiByte in terms of the technologicals. And I've often asked in the Telegram channel and the developer channel, how to get started, but it's really hard. And typically, you'll always get the same reply. Just look at Bitcoin's code, at Bitcoin's RPC commands. Uh, that always threw me off a bit. It always held me back. But I think it was halfway last year that Renzo sent me DigiByte.js. I never heard about it before. And when I was looking at it, I was actually like, hey, this stuff isn't really that hard actually to communicate with the underlying blockchain. And that's actually how I ended up starting DigiByte Commerce. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I tried to update its documentation, trying to move it from saying bitcoins to DigiByte, and also updating some parts that might uh, might uh, might change between coins, but like 99% was the same. Yeah, I remember we talked. I also liked your approach to the development. I remember when I first started myself working on the Gmail desktop, I always planned to do, or it was planned to be a .NET uh, app, but lack of tools in C# was holding me back. Then, well, I think the e-commerce is built in .NET, right?
Yeah,
I remember hearing that somewhere. Yeah, yeah, and I think that you managed to do that. It's pretty. I'm pretty happy about that because that's a new whole frontier that needs to be conquered through DigiByte. I think I'm like guarding the Node JS part of the battle. Now you have .NET, which is really awesome. It's in a stable environment, and I think might be valuable. Or your efforts on that front is very valuable. Thank you.
yeah, it was really hard at first because I come I've been a developer for 20 years at this point, and I come from mostly from a Microsoft development stack. So I work with C Sharp, .NET Framework, stuff like that. I work with Azure DevOps. And most crypto-related projects are all built in the Linux ecosystem. They use C++ as a language. That's all stuff that's even for me as a developer is hocus pocus at some point. But in the end, communicating through RPCs with a node is actually just a matter of calling to a JSON web service. It's very basic, but I never realized it before. And I think that's because of the lack of proper documentation, which is typically the first thing I look for when I start to implement another framework or whatever. And I think DigiByte's really lacking in that regard, because just pointing people towards Bitcoin's RPC commands, I really don't think is a good approach. It throws people off for sure. It threw me off for years.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. This has been my biggest thing that I think we could have done better for years. Is the documentation exactly what you get at? I mean, I'll be the first to say there's been a lot of times we've thought about it. Oh, we need to explain, we need to give demonstrations, we need to put some documentation, but we've had such limited resources, especially for the first few years, and even now still, where let's be honest. I mean, me personally, between trying to help maintain, I mean, at one point I was maintaining the website, the social media accounts, coding the core protocol, doing the block explorer, doing the seeders, doing a bunch of different stuff. It was just completely overwhelming, and we've never had a coordinated effort to give simple demonstrations and take the time to do documentations. And I think had we taken the time, just taken a month or two, and that's all we did, maybe 3-4 years ago, I think we would be in a whole different situation, in terms of, because what you said is exactly true. I've been developer for 20 years, and that's the first thing I do when I come into a new project is I go read the documentation. And that is 100% something that has been severely lacking. And I think what Renzo's doing is phenomenal. I actually didn't know you were doing some of those things. I was just sitting here cloning the desktop wallet locally and compiling it here. But you're doing phenomenal work, Renzo. Thank you very much. But yeah, I think that's something we're absolutely missing is documentation for a developer to come in, and just because it actually is easier in some ways when we talk about building on top of DigiByte, than people realize. So that's something I think we should focus on in 2024 is just the documentation. And I think the tools, some of these AI things like ChatGPT is actually very helpful and can be very helpful with this. And like you said, C++ can look like hocus pocus. Even somebody who's been working with C++, for 20 years now, when I jump back into the core protocol, I still believe, Bitcoin, DigiByte, this UTXO C++ protocol is probably one of the most complicated pieces of code there is, especially in an object-oriented setting. And I myself have to jump in and a lot of times spend an hour or two just trying to figure out what's happening, even the code that I've looked at, but it might have been a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But it's something that I think is a pain point that most certainly is going to need to be addressed to get a lot of traction in terms of developers moving forward.
Yeah, it's writing documentation is it's not the most fun thing to do.
No, it's not. And I personally have always hated writing. You can ask my high school and college English teachers and professor. So, writing has never been my strong suit.
A couple of months ago, I was trying to basically there's a DigiByte developer site which documents all of the RPC calls, and it always struck me as Leroy was saying, it's not great when people say, can you tell me how to do this? And then you just say, just look at Bitcoin. I mean, I think at least we should have a DigiByte website that documents all the RPC stuff. And there is a Bitcoin website that we can clone and actually adapt. And I did actually make a start at doing this. Unfortunately, my HTML and CSS skills are not brilliant. So I kind of hit a slight wall, and then I was busy with other stuff. But the nice thing about this site is it seems to use a script that will basically uh, it automatically documents the, as far as I can understand it, it seems to automatically kind of document all of the RPC calls by actually making calling the node and documenting them. And so I think in some ways it simplifies the process a bit. It's definitely worth looking into anyway. It was kind of something I want to try and do this quarter and have a look at.
And
Yeah,
that's a great.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's a great point because we do actually have some RPC commands that are unique to DigiByte and have been modified uniquely to DigiByte that I don't think have ever been thoroughly documented.
And get difficulty.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only one, right?
There's a couple others, but they revolve around multi-algo. I'd have to go look. I know there's at least one more.
I mean, but that's the thing. You could actually, I think you could take the majority of Bitcoin's documentation and just slam the DigiByte logo on it. But I think it just looks better if developers ask, and there's plenty of people coming in and out of the Telegram channel every once in a while. I think it just looks better if
pretty much what I was doing. I just went through and changed the ports on the documentation, and but there was a lot of technical stuff that I just didn't know the answer to. Like, I can't remember now, but there was stuff that was as I'm not a C++ developer, I just didn't know how to convert the documentation into DigiByte language.
Yeah, I think that's this is something maybe there could be a community bounty raised to work towards because it'd be super beneficial.
I think the new wiki would be a great place to put everything on.
Yeah, some sort of markdown interface or even on GitHub there. Because if you're talking about another website, you got to have a server hosting. I mean, we kind of go back to this. We get it up, it's good for a little while. And we actually have had a documentation website in the past. But once again, it came down to maintaining another server and platform and code base when we were like I said, it really is amazing the amount of infrastructure we supported with the little resources we did for several years. But that's no excuse moving forward. I mean, if we're going to be a tier one world class blockchain, we got to have the basic infrastructure to support it.
Yeah, the wiki does seem like a sensible place to put this, actually.
Another thing I've been struggling with is I've also seen the shout outs from Ollie and on behalf of the DigiByte infrastructure team to add new seeders, to add new nodes, and even just a seeder, which is really just a simple piece of software. I mean, I can read most of the C++ code even, but there's no way for me to just get it working on a Windows machine out of the box without having to make great changes to my development environment. And I think once we can get stuff like that rolling, I think there's a whole new ecosystem of developers you can tap into.
With the scissors, I was making some tests a few weeks ago. 2 years ago, on 2022, I made a node crawler for Mark Junilo. He wanted to put that under. I don't know if it was the Demon Alliance website or something like that. That project never came to nowhere, so it was never launched. But with the same code that I was able to make the seeder, I think. Well, no, I think no. I'm quite sure because I made some tests a couple of weeks ago that emphatically I'm able to generate some piece of code on Node.js that are able to emulate, or not to emulate, no, to be a seeder software. So with just a list of nodes from the node crawler, I think I'm able to to that piece of software to also be a seeder for DigiByte. The problem is that I do not have access to a server with IPv6, which that represents like 10% of DigiByte nodes. So I can launch that. I mean, I could bet it's just. I think it needs to be like put in a server with all the capabilities. But that will kind of solve, not solve, but that will help to the seeder problem that they were having. I never I was asked if I knew how to do that. I said, just give me some time, let me do some tests. But the result shows that that might be possible. I'm not 100% sure, so I can't secure anything. But yeah, that might help the issue because to run Node.js environment, it's quite easier to set everything up, just like to have a uh, shared hosting that are super cheap, and to put that on an environment with Node.js is much easier than other platforms because they're like multi-platform stuff. So that might help. I don't know. I think I will need to reach Mark about that sooner because well, when I finished some stuff that I'm working on. But that might help. That's just an idea that I'm throwing to the air. If anyone is interested.
I think we just need more stuff like that in general to open up the possibilities for any new developers coming in. So I
So
hope in a sense what I'm doing with DGB Commerce, it's all open source for the record for the people that don't know yet. But the entire API part that I built in for DGB Commerce, it's basically a communication layer with DigiByte Core in this case. The cool thing about it is I can also use it for Bitcoin or Litecoin or Doge or whatever other Bitcoin fork. The technicals are all the same with the exception of some DigiByte specific RPCs. But basically, that entire layer can be used as a means of communication for any .NET developer. It's basically just a class someone can copy and paste right out of the repository in GitHub.
That's great.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's good to know. You know, somebody coming from basically my entire development life, I've avoided .NET and just been Linux based. You know, to me, that whole world's a foreign world. But it's like you said, there's so many people and so much infrastructure that's been built there, especially in the the professional world. That I think providing those assets is invaluable. So yeah, thank you for that, and I'm going to check that out more. I wasn't really familiar with what exactly was going on. But also Renzo, I just cloned the desktop wallet. I like what you got going on here. I just booted it up and it's got a lot of potential here, man.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks. I liked that it worked. I'm trying to code it as easy as possible. Not just be a utility for people, but also a model for new developers to see how DigiByte works on the inside. Um, I still need to clean some parts of the code up, and well, to try to make it more understandable. The hardest part up to now is in the documentation. I still need to update some stuff now that I finished the syncing part. But yeah, thanks overall.
yeah, no, I think it's got a lot of potential to do some really cool things. There's definitely some flow things, but yeah, it's a good starting point. There's a lot of potential for this platform, because that's one of the things that's held us back is the core wallet honestly is confusing to a lot of beginners. They're like, well, what do you mean I got to let it sync? What does that mean? Isn't it just supposed to work? And that's kind of the vision. Even if you go back to Satoshi's post where he talked about the light wallet, that would fill the void, right? And having a smooth, good looking DigiByte desktop wallet that is a light wallet, because we've had some approaches at this in the past, but they were dependent on back end servers and third party middle, intermediaries. And, the issue we've had with that is who maintains it, who runs it, and what are the legal liabilities. And that's actually like I don't know if you remember, we had the DigiByte gaming wallet there for a little while. Well, that was relying on a third party, and um there was some legal issues with that and some other stuff, but something like this has a lot of potential. So very cool. I'm gonna have to start playing around with it some more, and testing it out here, see if maybe I can't help you here and there. um
Aw- Awesome, yeah. Well, the wallet runs or syncs from blockbook nodes that are public.
Right.
The problem is that there are only four out there. I think it's enough for a low user flow. One of them is digexplorer.info. The other one is from Garda Wallet. One for Atomic Wallet, and one that is unidentified. I don't know who owns it. There are two more out there that have the Trezor have them, or that the Trezor runs them. Sorry, but they're not open. I can't like connect them through a regular API call or regular HTTP call. So I've tried to reach out to them, but there were just only crickets from their end. And it will be a lot of help, not just for the project, not just for the UX desktop, but for the community in general, if those two nodes are available to everyone, because those are like the more maintained. As Blockbook, it's Trezor software, so well, maybe no, I don't know, maybe among everyone we can like raise Tracer's attention to try them to like uh open them up for the community. I think the URL is dgb1.tracer.io and dgb2.tracer.io. Those are the nodes
Well,
that
I
are.
I can tell you that something like this, because we had a similar situation with the Digibyte gaming wallet, and then the just the Digibyte, because this is built on Electron, right? Um,
Yeah,
that's what
that's
it.
where I try to like ping the data from multiple sources. What it does is that the module that controls the syncing randomize the pointer it's up to call. Um, so it might the first time call the Explorer, the next one the Garda, the Atomic Wallet, and then the Unidentified, and that in a
Right.
random order, so that it's not first of all, it's not traceable to where you're getting the information, and probably not to what you're going to or that you're looking. But also that way, it's not there's not a single point of failure. If one of those nodes goes out of line, there's still some, or well, the hope is there's still some of their out there. Last year we had 6. Today we have 4 open.
Yeah.
I just don't want this number to be reduced, because not just
Well,
for this project, but my other projects use this kind of service too. For example, the UI,
right.
you've also used this technique.
Well, that brings me to another point of what it is actually missing in the Digibyte infrastructure stack. From a I guess a full stack point of view, when we had those desktop wallets running, there were so many requests. I think there were, especially in 2018, in January of 2018. I think I paid like $5,500 for my AWS server bill because of how many times Digi Explorer at the time I was maintaining that and paying for it every month. We had over 30 million requests in 2018. And what I found out is all these services were basically hitting Digi Explorer. I think back then, I think Trezor and Ledger and all these third party applications were hitting Digi Explorer, and I was paying the server bill for it. But that brings back to this missing piece of infrastructure Digibyte's never had. If you look at Ethereum, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with Infura. It's the managed Ethereum infrastructure. If you take Infura down, 90% of Ethereum goes offline. That's how centralized their entire development ecosystem has come. But at the same time, this idea of managed node infrastructure is a huge commercial opportunity in the Digibyte ecosystem. If you can deploy a service like Digi Explorer or something that other people can tie into, you could charge, X amount for certain API requests. Now, there is some degree of centralization in this, what I'm talking about, but it makes it super easy to build on top of Digibyte. And for services like Renzo's Digibyte Desktop and other things to ping into. And this kind of infrastructure, I believe, is essential for bigger and bigger players to get involved with Digibyte. And it's something that's completely missing. It's something I've had conversations in private with people about, saying, yeah, we really do need some sort of like manage DigiByte infrastructure. And this is also a way to potentially fund development because, if you look at something like Red Hat Linux, right? These open source operating systems, how are they able to sustain themselves and continue development for years? Because one of the biggest issues we have is we have no funds. We have no funding for these kind of tools and infrastructure. But for something like this, not only does it make it easier to tie into, but you can build out, and then there's actually a commercial out, and it's something I've thought about doing. But as I'm sure maybe I get a lot of ideas floating around, but we all have limited time to execute them. But yeah, some sort of community based managed infrastructure is needed to help scale these requests, because if you have a core wallet as the backend for a service, it will bog down if you start pinging it with hundreds and thousands of requests per second or per minute. And I know this because I've tried it. I've tried it with different platforms. So if you talk about a service that's going to be used potentially by millions of people, you will hit bottlenecks if you don't have an intermediary layer to handle a lot of this. And that's something that's completely missing from the DigiByte ecosystem right now.
Yeah, I really tried to effort or to reduce the load on the nodes by having load transaction from 1,000 to 1,000. So if wallet has like, let's say 3,000 transactions, it's only going to make like 3 calls to the server to ping them all. And from then on, it's going to calculate the UTXO available and the balance and the other stuff, just to try to reduce the the cost of the service. Also, because I don't know how balanced or how good the internet under people ends is. For example, here in Peru, we have really bad internet connections for general or for the general public. There's the percentage of people that has a really good connection is so low here, and to have all this information synced, it's going to be a pain in the ass for a lot of people, or for the general public, by saying an example. Um and well, that's one thing that it still needs to be solved. Um and well, also the cost to run a node. I've encountered that issue many times in the past when planning not just DigiFaucet, but also the DigiByte, sorry, DigiAsset Explorer. I had to deal with the issue that I don't have like the resources to run a node for myself, because, for example, a node that or a service that goes $200 to run a month for a node, for example, with a good software. Well, probably the average is around $50, but it's just an example. That's a minimum wage here, and that's been the asset since the beginning. So that's why I started relying on Blockbook Explorers. That's been helped a lot. I think without them, I can be able to contribute to the community, and that's why they're important, because it's managed. They have managed, or they solved the issue to a good synchronization for small projects. Probably for something bigger like DB Commerce, a node is required to handle that amount of transactions. But just for small things, that's enough, and that's something that needs to be like maintained or sustained through time to have that available to people. So yeah, that's
And I think a lot of people underestimate that, because running a node on a personal PC, I mean, it's no biggie. But if you have to run it on a VPS, where typically on a Windows machine, DigiByte Node requires about 4.5 gigabytes of memory, I had to upgrade my VPS for it. So, and I think that there's a lot of calls for exchanges, why certain exchanges aren't listing DigiByte, and I think that that's one of the causes, to be honest. I think a lot of people don't realize that in order to run to automate DigiByte transactions, or to run a DigiByte wallet as an exchange, you'll need to run Node software, which costs money, which costs memory.
Yeah,
And
and
in
then
my
if
case,
you're
it's not much. I mean, in my case, there's not going to be thousands of transactions pouring in. I actually did a little bit of stress testing in the last couple of weeks on my local DigiByte node installation, and I mean, with the volumes I've had to use in order to kill the DigiByte node wallet, I'll never be reaching those amounts in production, not by a long shot. But I think if you run something like a blockbook software, yeah, you're going to get a lot of calls. But I think in the end, I mean, now you're using or actually resorting to public blog books. But I think in the end, it would be very wise to have one in house, as in the DigiByte community, hosted somewhere, just as a fallback.
Yes, yes, for sure. But even what's amazing about like the explorers, the Block Explorer, and these other middle, I guess you could call them middleware infrastructure, is they still talk to the core wallet, right? They're just it's just repetitive calls, like looking up addresses, transactions. Once you've got the database indexed, you don't need the core wallet's not the most efficient way, but when you really start scaling, yeah, there's definitely got to be some a middle layer of software between the core wallet and the end user. And at the end of the day, making the end user interface as simple and straightforward as possible is one of the things we've always kind of struggled with, because 9 out of 10 people just aren't going to spend the time to really understand and learn like what's actually happening in a core wallet. And frankly, if like Bitcoin, I still have a Bitcoin, full node, but it's completely unusable, I think, for your average person. Not to mention, it'll completely. I think what is the size of Bitcoin blockchain size right now? I think it's I don't know if it's hit a terabyte yet, but it's pretty crazy to run a full Bitcoin node on your computer.
I think it's more than 500 gigs anyway, that much.
Oh, it's definitely more than 500. I think it was around
550
600
almost.
last. What was that?
Almost 550.
550? Yeah, I thought it was
You need
around
a
600, but
500 gig drive won't do it anymore. You need a
well,
110 something, yeah.
just to touch on the memory issue, this is something I actually spent some time last week and the week before, and I want to work on again. I know we have memory leaks in the core wallet, and that's part of it, and I think it's been there for a few years. I think it has something to do with how some of the pointers are allocating memory, and I think there's some ways. I think I have a hunch on how there's ways you can track down memory leaks in C++. I do believe there's a way that if we can identify where some of these leaks are, that we could get running a core wallet under 4 gigs again, and then back on a Raspberry Pi 3. It would be nice, and that's another thing that I could probably spend a few weeks trying to track this down, and if that's all I did full time. But I do know that there are some memory leaks causing that high RAM problem.
I wanted to ask a question just about SPV wallets, which is something I don't know that much about, but is that not an option for having a lightweight desktop wallet using an SPV thing, like for something like Renzo is building? Rather than being a full node yourself, you're relying on other nodes. Is that possible?
The thing with FPVs is that it still requires synchronization time. That might be a wall for new users to get in. We've seen it with the DigiByte mobile wallet, which I think was an SPV, the simple payment verification wallet. And synchronization and call for transactions much trickier. So if you want to maintain like a download and use scheme for the user, a light wallet for that is the best approach. Maybe for some users that doesn't confuse enough, but in general, for the people that I've done tests to wallet, it's really hard to understand that concept of synchronization and just wait to use part. Most
Yeah, it's not
people,
really practical on mobile, I
yeah,
admit.
it's
It
not
was kind of a
practical.
pain to
Most people
use.
just want to download and use it. Yeah.
Yeah, mobile, it gets tough, and that's some of the issues we ran into. Is there is delay, and it actually kind of what's worked against us is because the chain is so fast. The amount of blocks it has been an issue, for synchronization, even with the SPV nodes. I do believe there's potential for it, and it could be fixed. But once again, you're talking about resources, infrastructure, and development time to just focus on that potential aspect. But the possibilities there, I believe, for SPV, but it is challenging. And as Renzo stated, for the end user, you want it snappy. That's what people are used to, especially in the year 2024. They want real time responsiveness from an app.
Well, I was only thinking in terms of having a desktop wallet that doesn't use so much resources. I mean, you might have a component that keeps running in the background to keep it synced, but then you're not requiring a massively expensive VPS machine or whatever to run it. I don't know actually. I don't know how much resources an SPV wallet uses versus running a completely full node.
Yeah, it all depends on where it's connecting and how many users you have. I mean, if you had 1 million people, using an SPV wallet connecting to a handful of full nodes, you'd probably see some of those providers limiting, by default, what is it, 120 connections is what the core wallet will make 8 continuously, but you can specify like some of the seeds we've set. I've had it up to like 800, I think is the most I've ever had. And I remember this was in 2018 when everything was getting crazy. I remember logging in, and that particular server, I think it was the mining pool, had 798 peers.
Wow.
So you're going to have this traffic issue. And that's where it goes back to, like I said, if there was some way to make everything revolve around a desktop full node, the core wallet, it would be ideal, because then you'd have all these people. And that's why we try to do it with gaming and mining and get people. And, the fact that our blockchain is what, 30 gigs in size is pretty darn good. And that's why I've always been against, you want to keep the amount of data that you're actually putting on chain as minimal as possible. People have this idea of, oh, we'll upload it to the blockchain, like a full length major motion picture. I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. All you need to do is put the cryptographic hash of that file. But the problem is the human readable file or that movie still needs to be stored somewhere. And that's why you haven't seen decentralized blockchain storage really take off, is because it's just not practical to put everybody's photos, videos on a blockchain, because you're talking about 1 trillion terabytes, which would never, nobody could ever run the node, right? That's why some of these DPoS blockchains, I've talked to some of these guys, and they're, and I'm not going to name specific networks, but it's just absolutely insane, the infrastructure to run some of these master nodes. I mean, you're talking about $20,000 a month server bills just to run a node on some of these leading blockchains that you see, on Coin Market Cap, that are highly centralized among, a dozen or 2 dozen nodes. But people don't understand the back end, how resource intensive it can get, when you talk about scaling some of this infrastructure.
One thing you mentioned, and we haven't really talked about, is alongside like a usable wallet that has like a lot of features, we're really not taking advantage of digi assets as much as we can. Renzo's doing some great work, and Matthew from Digi Asset X, of course, and even Securus Wallet. I know they're working with it, but if we had like some easy ways to like automate, like make it programmable, like to an easy extent, so we could incentivize things or give them out as just collectibles, like in a very simple fashion, I think we'd have a lot of success in finding new DigiByte users.
For sure, for sure. And just to kind of touch on Digi Assets, part of the reason that it hasn't taken off goes back to that same idea. You don't need to put the human readable files on the blockchain. What you do is you put the cryptographic hashes and the cryptographic representations of these assets on chain. Well, the problem is, to the end user, that doesn't mean anything. It's just gibberish. You got to have the human readable image or video or text. But then the question is, where is that stored and who handles it? because you got to have a middle layer of service. And this goes back to what's missing in DigiByte is this middle managed infrastructure layer. And so, but then on the flip side, and this is why with the Digipad platform, we never launched it, the legal liability of those images, because if it's on like an AWS server that you're running for your wallet, you're still liable for whatever image some Yahoo decides to upload as a digi asset, right? So if you're decentralized and you allow anybody to create a digi asset with anything, what do you do when you're managing these files? And to be honest, that's the problem that hasn't been solved, and that's why we haven't had the big adoption of this. Because and then also there was the whole securities thing. Are these securities or not? That whole thing I can never get a clear answer on from anybody because it still hasn't been determined. But yeah, I mean the potential's there. There's just these problems that need to be solved.
Yeah, and I think with the Digi Assets version 3 approach with the IPFS is nice, but if we could just and you know what's actually interesting is the old DigiByte mobile app was actually so ahead of the time really with Digi Assets. I think that was what 2019 that it went live with the old now, sundown DGB mobile.
Yeah, well, I've long believed that the solution to this is that the user that creates the asset should be the one that's hosting the human readable files. So the images or the videos or whatever, and then distributing. And once again, this goes back to if the core wallet becomes the hub for all this activity for messaging, communication, sharing, the end responsibility for whatever the content of that asset is should be on the user who generated it.
That's a good point. I think
Well,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly what DigiAsset Core is trying to do is that you basically self-host the thing yourself, but I mean it's kind of on you. But other people might pin it, but you're basically it's kind of it's up to you to make sure that the metadata for your asset you keep it online on your node.
Yeah, and I think that is the long term probably the best solution. It's just providing the easy to use infrastructure to do that. And once again, here's another opportunity for commercial. I'm not saying there can't be some sort of managed metadata service out there that has, in an ideal world for digi assets, you would have multiple managed metadata providers with different criteria. One platform may say, "Oh, we allow anything. It's true decentralization, whatever goes," and another metadata hosting provider might say, "No, we have strict rules. There's no this, or that." Ideally, there should be several options for people on how they handle it, and I think that my hope is eventually that takes place.
I've actually been looking into APIs before I started DGB Commerce, and I stumbled upon NowNodes. And NowNodes offers an API practically for every RPC. And the only thing that held me back was they have a very, very hefty licensing and pricing model. I think they charge a couple dozens of dollars just for a couple of thousand of RPCs in the end, which is really going to be taxing if any platform takes off. But I think getting back to desktop wallets, I think that will be another way to go, to have some sort of, and pardon my French, decentralized API in our own community that we self-host, which desktop wallets can communicate with. So you don't even need to sync, just communicate with the API, which in turn communicates with a node.
Yeah, no, and that I don't know. It's like kind of this circle because, yeah, I mean, if you look at like the Ethereum infrastructure stack, I mean, it's really gotten to the point where the whole damn Ethereum blockchain is really kind of anchored on probably a half a dozen nodes. So it becomes more centralized. So it's a battle of how do you keep as many people as possible running core nodes and infrastructure, but at the same time making it easy to scale and build on and to do these kind of things that need to happen. Um, it's a challenge for sure.
I think for most forms of utility, you need some sort of centralization in the end. I mean, DigiByte does it in the end. Basically, it generates a QR code where people send DigiByte to, and on the background, that same amount of DigiByte gets transferred to the merchant. So in a sense, I'm also a very centralized party, albeit all open source, where everyone can see what happens behind the scenes. But I think for every type of utility, that there's not really a way around this in the end.
Yeah, within the current confines of, how the fundamental internet works and programming stacks and dev stacks, the world we live in, yeah, there's going to be some sort of it. And that's why I always like to say decentralization is a spectrum. Depends on the application. Um, I do have to run here in a minute, but I just want to tell everybody that's here thank you, and thanks for making DigiByte great, and it's good to hear. I had a thought as I'm sitting here, just kind of talking. There's a lot of people I've never talked to here. Is this kind of the main hub where people are talking now? I mean, I know we've got people on all different platforms, and then frankly, it got to the point where it was impossible for me to try and keep up with Telegram, Twitter, Reddit, the Bitcoin Talk, all these different things. Is there a lot of chat going on here? Is it?
It's
Mostly
been
on
pretty
Twitter
quiet, but we've been
Spaces.
trying to push people to Discord. I think most people in the DigiByte community are active on Twitter, or X as we call it nowadays. And I think a couple of us actually tried to host the space on X. There were some technical difficulties, and I think Telegram's also still pretty active from time to time. But yeah, it's really hard to get everyone to one specific platform or community.
So a lot of people may not know, for the first 2 or 3 years of DigiByte's existence, all the development chat in real time actually happened on IRC, Internet Relay Chat. Um, and those days I kind of remember fondly because there was just a bunch of random, I don't know, there's probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 dozen people with random names. Nobody knew who each other was, but we were just talking in real time as we were coding and building stuff. I've really missed that. And that's something that hasn't existed in DigiByte for years. But that was kind of the nucleus and the core people that got DigiByte off the ground back in 2014. And there's probably a lot of people in here that have no idea what IRC is, but very, very old school.
Yeah,
What
but
you
I will.
described kind of sounds like the DGB and core node testing infrastructure channels on here on the Discord. But yeah, Reddit, Telegram, Twitter, all very active still.
Yeah, I think most interactive sessions are held here lately. I mean, the DigiByte Alliance has been hosting these monthly education hour things, and they all take place here.
But there's a large community of Twitter Spaces as well, from Johnny Law, Renzo's in many of them. Michael hosts many of
Michael, yeah.
them. Who's here? So there's a lot of activity across the board, honestly, especially if you consider it's a bear market. It's actually very surprising.
Yeah, no,
From more lively approach, yeah, the DigiByte spaces that Michael hosts, Master of Leadership, I think their main point of reunion, they were like the first approach they had to the community back in 2021. So if you want to have like a more personal or face to face, well, not face to face, but you got there, you got me, approach to the community, that will be a great start. I know that sometimes we don't know have time to do that. These last few months, I've tried. I haven't been able to connect there, but it's a cool way to interact with the people that at the end use our software and the people who actually use the products that everyone here is building.
Yeah, it's good
Can
to
I
know.
ask a quick question for the community? Like, there's been a lot of good conversation about initiatives and things we need to focus on, like documentation. Can we, some of the folks that did offer those as solutions, can you document that in the anniversary chat just so we have a way to
see that, and then we can start pushing that out to get more people involved that aren't on the call?
I think these things are already happening behind the schemes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess particularly, Leroy, you were talking a little bit about documentation. I mean, I know we're talking about doing it on the wiki, but is there anybody actually doing that process?
I think Ollie was doing it some time
Okay,
ago, right?
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been writing anything lately, but absolutely there will be writing, and I'm hoping that people will contribute. Ollie did, and please do it more.
Yeah, I did
Yeah,
a little bit.
I mean, outside of the folks here that are already doing the work, I'm saying to bring on more people to help you guys.
Actually, just the other day, I think this week I added the Discord authentication functionality, so now you can actually log into the DigiByte wiki using your Discord account, basically.
Cool.
So now we have there's GitHub and Discord authentication. Those are the only two options.
Yeah, I will say it's a nice platform, and it's actually surprisingly easy to use. I mean, if people here aren't familiar with Markdown, if you just Google Markdown, it's all one word. It's actually quite an easy way of just structuring data and creating headings and bold text and italics and things without really knowing any code, as it were. So it should be fairly easy for anybody who wants to contribute to contribute. I mean, you can learn Markdown in 20 minutes. There's not much to learn.
Yeah,
I'd like to say something real quick before I know Jared said he had to leave. So I wanted to say that I remember watching an interview where he was talking about that if he could pick anybody's brain, that it would be Ralph Merkel. And I always thought, like, man, that'd be an interesting conversation to listen to. And to me, right now, listening to the conversation and the interaction between everybody here is the equivalent of listening to that same type of conversation. So I wanted to share that because I know that he said he was going to leave, and I appreciate every one of you here in this chat right now. I think we all contribute in different ways. I'm looking at everybody here, from content creators, people who manage Discord, manage Reddit, people who contribute to the DigiFacts, Poly, DigiNode tool. I know that there's people that are not here today that will probably listen to this later. There's people behind the scenes who are trying to get, education, information, and spread awareness. Like the DigiB magazine, those guys, a couple of guys decided to, put an initiative together to share information. There's a group of guys over in Nigeria, the DigiB Africa guys, who took it upon themselves to create this team over there. And recently they had visited, I think it was a university where they live, and they were talking to people, spreading awareness, sharing pamphlets with DigiByte information. And to me, that's like, the epitome of grassroots. So I just wanted to say that this is, a fascinating conversation, and this is the tone that the community and these community leaders that I see here in this room should be having.
Hey, Jose, this is Michael. I just wanted to say one thing. Jared, it's been 10 years. I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you. You've given me something in my life of purpose, your creation. And, I want to get emotional, but this has been a very, very, very opening experience for me, learning. I've never learned about technology in this depth because of DigiByte has opened so much for me. And so I just want to let you know that there's people out there that really, really are taking what you created and trying to build with it.
Thank you. It means a lot. I really appreciate that. Not to kind of making me get a little emotional here. A lot of people, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but the day before, so on January 9th, before I launched DigiByte, I called my older brother up and I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to launch a cryptocurrency and a blockchain. And he's like, you're going to do what? And I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I've been working on it for a few months here. And the day before I launched it, have you guys ever heard of the song by Poison? Something to Believe in. Have you guys heard that song? I'm not gonna sing it for you because I'm a horrible singer, but you can look up the lyrics online. I played that over and over because he asked me, he's like, why are you gonna do this? And I said, I don't know why, but something's moving me, and I want to give people something to believe in, um, and myself something to believe in. And if there is one fundamental reason why I really did start DigiByte, it's I had this feeling just pushing me to give people something to believe in. So to hear you say that means the world to me. And if there is a DigiByte theme song, that song by Poison, Something to Believe in, would be it. And to be perfectly honest with the community here, I have this last couple years, I've gone through a lot personally. I've been burned out by crypto, by the chaos. But what keeps me coming back, and the reason I'm here now and still around after everything that's happened, is you guys, is the community. I'm just blown away by how many amazing people there are in the community from all walks of life, from all over the world. And you all are why I keep coming back. You know, I actually was able to meet a community member here for the first time in person about 3 or 4 days ago, who told me all these things about people in the community that I never knew. You know, people that had met and gotten married, people who'd had kids, friendships that were built, different businesses. You know, DigiByte has taken on a life of its own for sure. And you know, that's why I tell people I'm just a community member, just like everybody else. And it's just absolutely amazing to see all the very talented, wonderful people. And, you know, we may not always agree. We have different perspectives, but that's awesome. So yeah, thank you for that.
No problem.
All right, guys. So we've been going on this chat now for a little over 2 hours. It's an open floor generally. We want the Discord to be a place where people can just come in and talk and coordinate. So this is in line with all that. But basically, we'll just leave the chat going open. If anyone has anything they want to talk about or discuss, feel free. One thing I just want to say is that Twitter's going absolutely crazy. There's a lot of people posting about DigiByte's birthday, and it's good to see the enthusiasm.
Yeah, very much so. Well, I'm gonna head out, everybody. So thank you all, and happy birthday.
Take care.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep. Take care, man.
I'm going to step up here and say a little bit before I have to go as well. I want to tell you all that I've really enjoyed listening to you guys. I'm not one that has the technical knowledge that you do, and I'm very grateful that there's individuals with your talents that are here that keeps this going and keeps it innovating. What I can do, I try my best to tell the world about it and to grab their attention and to say, hey, look here, this is what we've got. I was trying to explain it to someone just a couple of days ago because there's so many in this space that, and we all would love a great financial return. We all want life to be easier. But I was telling them that DigiByte is not necessarily about that. It's more about survival, I guess, a tool to combat suppression of what we know and what we want to be. So, like I said in my tweet earlier today, I've been here for several years, and I've enjoyed every day of it. If there's never a financial return by being a part of this community, I feel grateful to have landed here and to have met each and every one of you. And Jared, yes, I know that song very well. So you've given me a great idea, and watch out for some type of media in the near future. And
I'm looking forward to it.
all right, guys, I'm going to hop off of here because I've had this in my back pocket with the speaker on where I could listen. I've not been able to say much, and I might not have service for much longer. But I love you all. I'm glad you're here, and yeah, let's keep something to believe in.
Take care, brother.
Take care, Shane.
Yeah, take care. Absolutely well said. Well, I really am closing out now, guys. I gotta go meet my parents here for a meeting. So, anyway, thank you all. Love you all. Have a good one.
See ya. I just want to commend, I've been a part of the DigiByte community since 2017. And when you join the community, there's nobody to tell you that you're a part of the community. And when I realized that, I just went steadfast with it. I'm like, I'm going to be a part of this. I want people to know who I am because of what I believe in. And, I feel like DigiByte has created for me this platform for me to help people understand things that they've never ever tried to challenge themselves with. Technology, finances, just, DigiByte has just been just a great thing for me. I wake up every day excited about DigiByte. So to hear Shane say not to care about a financial return, I feel the same way. I've built so much knowledge from just being a part of this community. So much I've learned, and what you learn is there's no price tag on that. And the people I've met, the really good people I've met, the people, I've even chose to discuss personal stuff with. So it's like this community to me is so much more than just the product, which is DigiByte. It's like we created this synergy around it. And all of us just want to see it thrive. And we know the challenges, we wake up to those every day. We hear it from the naysayers on Twitter, in the Telegram, the people that come in, but we still pull ourselves up our own bootstraps and say, you know what? DigiByte is worth the challenge. And that's what I like about this community. We're not concerned with being popular. We're concerned with being a good alternative. And that's why I'm here. So as much as I got in it for the money, it's the community that kept me. And I'm just excited. It's 10 years, guys, like 10 years of this product. It's never been stalled. It's operated as it's been told for 10 years. And it should just give you more ammunition behind you, more grit to understand that this is here. And you should feel secure enough to get people involved with it because there's nothing wrong with this. This is a challenge for humankind, to improve humanity, the quality of human life. This product can do that if we continue to promote it, create awareness, do the education hours, do the Twitter, the awareness team, everything. If we just put forth the effort, it's going to all work out, just like it's done for the last 10 years. And that's all I want to say.
Well said, brother. Well said. Yeah. There's a lot of work to do. I like how you said that. We know there's some challenges, but it's survived this long, and I think it's going to keep on going. All right, everybody. Should we call that a wrap for the official Discord event? Should I hit the break button on the recording?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So this chat will be open, but I think that was.